Let me set the scene for you. It's the fall of 1989, and you need a new family hauler. You've been a GM fan ever since your uncle peeled out of Thanksgiving in his quad 442, and so you walk into a GMC dealer. You're gonna have two options to fit your entire family. This is a 1990 GMC Suburban, and this is a 1990 GMC Safari. And so today we're gonna be doing a little bit of comparing and contrasting and figure out which one of these vehicles would have been right for you 35 years ago. Option number one was the GMC Safari. This is basically a Chevy Astrovan, but with a couple little additions. It has seating for 8, and it has the 4.3 liter V6. Now, this was going to be the more budget offering, and it's going to be able to tow a lot less than the Suburban, but it's going to be a little bit more friendly to drive. Not as friendly to drive as maybe a Oldsmobile Silhouette, but it was still a little bit less daunting if a family was going to drive it than the big old Suburban, which leads us to option 2. Option number 2 is the Suburban, and arguably this one's a little bit worse for wear, has a couple of miles on it, but this was the bigger option. It came with the bigger V8, the Chevy 350 that we'll get into here in a second, and it just had bigger road presence. It shared the platform with their full-size pickup trucks as opposed to the Safari, which only shared it with the smaller pickup trucks. This is the behemoth, where the Safari is a little ant. Under the hood of the Safari, you'll find the 4.3 liter V6. So we are down 2 cylinders and down about 60 horsepower as compared to the Suburban. This makes about 150. Now, they later did update these to be around 200 horsepower, but that's not what we're dealing with here today. You also could find this chassis with the Astrovan with a 2.5 liter inline 4, the Iron Duke. That one didn't last too long, and pretty much no one chose it because it was such a lackluster engine, making just barely over 100 horsepower. At least this has 150. This is also paired to the 700R 4-speed automatic transmission, so no chucking gears here today. The Suburban has a 5.7 liter V8 under the hood that makes about 210 horsepower, or at least it did in 1990. This is known as the Chevy 350. This is the small block Chevy that was tossed into everything. Name a GM vehicle in the 80s and 90s that was on the larger side, it probably got something like this. These are incredibly reliable. Parts availability is still fantastic 35 years later, and this is bigger than the Safari's V6. You have 2 more cylinders, so we'll see how that pans out when we race them against each other, but let's talk about the interiors first. The cabin of the Safari was a lot more oriented towards families. You get a big aisle here so kids can move about the cabin. You have everything laid out very properly. Everything is very well labeled, but it still has that 90s GM sort of utilitarianness to it. Everything is big, chunky buttons. You have some blue displays staring back at you and lots of storage options like cup holders and a big cubby, which cup holders were not standard here in 1990, so definitely very, very nice to see. However, in the back, we have room for 6 more people. To my shock, the Suburban actually feels a little bit nicer. We have fake wood grain in here. We have a center console. We have more driver-oriented gauges, and so it's all sort of curved towards you. However, this does feel a lot more dated than the Safari does because this generation started in the late 70s and ran through the 1990s. So these gauges feel like President Nixon picked them out himself. But in terms of places to be, this does feel a little bit nicer, feels a little bit comfier, and I like that quite a bit. However, we gotta talk about the 3 rows. So I'm in the 3rd row of the GMC Safari, and it's really, really nice back here. If you have a family of 8, you could travel around in luxury. You're gonna have your own rows. We have cup holders and cubbies pretty much everywhere. This is a little bit easier to get in and out of as well. You have the big sliding door on the passenger side of the vehicle. There is not one on the driver's side, but on the passenger side, you get a big sliding door. It's very easy to access the back seat, at least the 3rd row. This is going to be the road trip vehicle and would be my pick. However, if you need to tow, that's where the Suburban comes in. The 3rd row of the Suburban is a lot less comfortable. I say that the seats themselves are actually very comfortable, and you do get 3 seatbelts here and 3 seatbelts here. So the Suburban nor the Safari actually has a number of seat advantage. The big advantage to the Safari is that getting in and out of here, the Suburban, is very, very tricky and very annoying. You have to fold the seat forward and then down and then crawl through here, where the Safari just made it a lot better. So in terms of ease of getting in and out of seats, the Safari definitely takes the cake, but I have to say riding back here across the country wouldn't be so bad either. Okay, so I probably have the most useless seat belt in America. A lot of GMs had that issue. A lot of 90s cars had that issue. But we have the 4.3 liter V6 here in the Safari. It's making about 150 horsepower when it was new. I imagine a few ponies have left the stable since 1990. But we're gonna see. You know, this is lighter than the Suburban, so maybe that will be our saving grace, but yeah, I don't know. All right, so the Suburban does have the bigger engine, 5.7 as opposed to 4.3, and it does make a significant amount more horsepower, 60 more horsepower, which is nearly 50% more than the Safari. However, this chassis is unwell, and so this might be kind of the interesting race. I don't know what's gonna happen. I just hope this thing holds together. That's my main ask. Go. Hard shift. Now. Now. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa, Nelly. Whoa, okay. That is probably harder than this thing has worked in a real long time. This is... I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I should not have done that. I have immediate regret. Oh God. Okay. How can I describe? It's jello. I mean, this car is, this Suburban is not held together with anything more than chewing gum. Oh my God. All right. Yeah, let's not do that again. The Safari's not a speed demon. I'm very curious to see the results. I mean, that 4.3 liter had to break a sweat to get us up there, but it did it. Still got a little life left in you, huh, girl? So there you have it, a comparison that maybe no one here in 2025 was asking for, but a cool one nevertheless. I have to leave you guys with the same question I always leave you at the head-to-head challenge. If you walked into a dealership in 1990 and saw these two offerings out on the showroom floor, which one would you take home, free of charge? Let me know down below. I think I would take the Safari just because it is nicer to drive and I don't own a boat that I would need to tow with the Suburban. So, win-win for the GMC Safari. Huge thank you to Kyle for letting me borrow both of his 1990 GMC vehicles for today's video. He's absolutely wonderful, and you can find full reviews of these cars on my channel as well. Take care, everyone.